We are going to move into an era where expertise is on your fingertips, and the value coming out of AI is going to be interdisciplinary at the intersection of technology, industry, domain, and operations. Most use cases today which are getting generated have human in the loop, and therefore there is accountability to the process. In fact, the people we hire from schools, we don't want them to even know about the classical way of writing code. We have mentioned that 20% of our code is written by machines. It could potentially be 50% in the next 12 months. The Anthropic CEO said, with the advent of AI, you need less number of freshers in the mix. I argued the other way around, saying we will probably have more freshers in the mix. Not only are you going to look for human labor which exists today, you're also going to look for human labor which doesn't exist today. You have to reimagine new labor pools. Software is going to be the alchemy of every business. Every business is going to be a technology business.
What does it mean when the chief of a top IT services firm says that he does not want new hires to even learn traditional coding? Well, in today's episode, Cognizant CEO Ravi Kumar S. unpacks the company's AI-first blueprint, where machines write code, natural language becomes the new programming language, and non-STEM minds are just as vital as engineers. Ravi says AI is a labor replacer for sure, but it's also key to interdisciplinary problem solving at scale. In this discussion, we try to decode Cognizant's three-pronged AI play: hyperproductivity, integration into enterprise systems, and identifying new talent pools. Ravi talks about vibe coding, and he talks about Cognizant's open sourcing initiatives. He opens up on the real economics, culture war, and regulatory voids shaping India's AI moment. And yes, we ask the uncomfortable question too. Can an AI revolution happen in India without well-formed data laws or enough compute? Listen on, it's Friday, July 11th. I'm Anirban Chowdhury. This is the Morning Brief. Hi Ravi, very warm welcome to the Morning Brief. So glad you could make time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity.
So I'll begin by quoting from Cognizant's latest annual report, in which it was said, "We believe the future of IT services will be defined by two unique opportunities: AI driving hyperproductivity and automation, and embedded engineering." Let's start by sort of unpacking this sentence.
You know what? The AI opportunity in front of us, I have actually expressed it in three vectors. The first is hyperproductivity, applying AI to software development cycles and AI to work alongside humans to write software code. That's the single most important use case of AI. That's the first vector. So as it improves over time, the percentage of code written by machines is going to keep going up. The second vector is integrating AI into enterprise landscapes. The third, uniquely, AI has this opportunity where this technology is not just an enabler, but it can actually take over human labor, and what we call is agentification. So once you integrate the AI technologies into enterprise landscapes, you can actually agentify and take human labor out. The art of the possibilities there is just immense, because not only are you going to look for human labor which exists today, you're also going to look for human labor which doesn't exist today. You have to reimagine new labor pools which don't exist today. So that's the first part, which I spoke about in the annual report. The second part of what we are talking about is software is embedded into everything. The next 25 years, is actually going to be about embedding technology into every core product and service, irrespective of the industry vertical. So the flip for tech services companies is to go from being a cost enabler for enterprises to being a new revenue generator, to actually help build new products, new services. Software is going to be the alchemy of every business. Every business is going to be a technology business.
Understood. Ravi, so clearly, I mean, it's way beyond what people had thought, or some people still think of it as just incremental automation, right?
So, Anirban, we are the only company which audited the number of lines of code written by AI. And in our earnings for the last 2 quarters, we have mentioned that 20% of our code is written by machines.
Correct.
So we have created a rhythm and a process inside the company to actually measure, audit, and enable our developer community to use AI for software development cycles.
Mm.
Now, interestingly, that 20% I'm talking about, it could potentially be 50% in the next 12 months. Yeah, I mean, already enterprises are quoting that they're doing 50%. I mean, if it is new code written, there's no legacy attached, the estate is clean, you could potentially do 50% even today. But in the next 12 months, at an aggregate level, you would probably get to 50% code. I mean, look, I have a strong belief that technology has elasticity. There are only 25 million developers around the world, software developers around the world. The world needs more. If you apply the Jivan's paradox, and Jivan is an economist who wrote about working under constraints, if you apply that theory, when you do more for less, you will end up doing more. And the elasticity to consume is actually going to increase. There is so much software needed in enterprises and industries across the world. So, our belief is if you pivot this well, you could actually improve productivity for developers and get a lot done for less. Remember, over the last maybe 15 or 20 years, the cost of capital was very low. The discretionary spend for technology was much higher because it kind of crossed the hurdle for business cases. Right now, the cost of technology has gone up, which means the cost of technology deployment has to go down so that you have the same velocity or more velocity of technology to be consumed by enterprises.
Mm.
We have been very fascinated in this journey in the last few months about how much AI can assist in software development cycles. To me, this is a game changer because if you genuinely believe this can be done in a way that developers actually use these platforms and improve the throughput, then you could actually generate a lot more throughput for the same input. In fact, the people we hire from schools, we don't want them to even know about the classical way of writing code. We want them to think about writing code is only done alongside AI algorithms. So that's the only way they will look at it. So they leapfrog directly into the future.
Got it. Just to bring you back, you started with the fact that 20% of code written in Q4 by Cognizant developers was AI generated. Here's some other data. Your data shows a 37% productivity uplift among the bottom 50% of developers with AI tools. You've trained 30,000 people in AI and 168,000 in Gen AI. Now, I wanted to understand just the human aspect of it. And with vibe coding, correct me if I'm wrong, if it in the simplest of terms, if it means that people who cannot code, non-coders will code now. So how do you balance upskilling speed with deep expertise and avoiding creating an AI literate but a shallow workforce?
That's a great point. So first
Yeah.
of all, Anirban, I've written multiple articles about how AI is going to be an equalizer. What I meant by that was the bottom 50 percentile actually get more productivity than the top 50 percentile.
Right.
What does that mean? What that means is you're uplifting the bottom and you are also uplifting the top. So you're taking the whole thing a notch above and you're compressing the upper limit to the lower limit,
Basically, narrowing the skill gap, right?
narrowing the skill gap. You're going to reduce the gap within an occupation and the gap between occupations. You're going to actually create more diversity in a developer profile. You're going to now find non-STEM disciplines being a part of software development cycles.
Sure.
What does it mean? If non-STEM disciplines become a part of software development cycles, you're going to find more diversity in problems solved. And the human endeavor since the Industrial Revolution has all been about solving problems. So, embedding problem finding as a part of your work, I think, is a very important switch in workplaces because
Mm.
that switch will allow us to create more purposeful leverage of software in our workplaces.
I have two very basic questions for you, just to maybe you'll have to sum up what you've already said. I'm First part is curiosity. What happens to STEM in the future? And 2, 3 years down the line, what will a developer in Cognizant look like?
Anirban, it's a great question. STEM skills are still needed for deep programming. I mean, writing AI algorithms will still be written by computer science engineers. So I have a strong belief that STEM skills on one side will do deep programming, and non-STEM skills will create more diversity in the code we write and the diversity in the problems we solve using software and technology. Now, the most important change in this new world is going to be interdisciplinary skills. So far, we have given a huge premium for expertise, for deep expertise, for deep specialization. And that's because as you penetrate more into a discipline, you actually get more value out of it. Now, we are going to move into an era where expertise is on your fingertips. And if expertise is on your fingertips and the value coming out of AI is going to be interdisciplinary at the intersection of technology, industry, domain, and operations, you're going to give more premium to interdisciplinary skills.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. If you're a history major, today the way to generate value is to go deep into history.
Mhm.
The second way of generating value, if you are able to support your endeavor with AI tooling around you, is to create interdisciplinary skills at the intersection of history and computing sciences. Let's look at drug development cycles. Drug development cycles are they're longish because a lot of human effort goes into drug development cycles.
Right. Right.
If you're a biology major or a chemistry major and you have skills related to AI and you have skills at that intersection, you can shrink the development cycles, the drug development cycles. So the point I'm making is universities, academia are used to giving a premium to deep expertise and to specialization. I think we're going to find a new swim lane of interdisciplinary skills. And that's why, if you remember, one of the articles I wrote in recent times, and it's a contrarian article to what the Anthropic CEO said. The Anthropic CEO said, with the advent of AI, you need less number of freshers in the mix.
Mm.
I argued the other way around, saying we will probably have more freshers in the mix.
And yet, in the short term, I think it's the freshers that are getting the boot from
I mean, in the
companies
short
which are.
term, look, it's a S curve. We will see a hockey stick of adoption of technology. If software engineers at the bottom of the pyramid are smart enough to use the tooling, they will actually get the productivity. And if they get the productivity, the consumption of software, the consumption of technology will go up. And as that happens, more freshers will be needed in the mix.
Got it. Coming to the agent bit, and also I'd like to, shift the conversation a little to your open sourcing initiatives. So Neuro is an example. By open sourcing Neuro, you have taken a very bold stance on shared innovation. Now, just connecting that with, the future, which is multi-agent systems, how do you see that shaping the future of, what is now team-based coding and enterprise-based problem solving?
Anirban, 3 weeks ago, we open sourced our multi-agent neuro platform. And then we realized that two things are important for us. One is clients have to see the neutrality of that orchestration layer we were building. So the best way to, make the clients not get stuck with a provider, but stuck with a technology which will shape their future. We thought open sourcing is a great idea. The second reason why we felt open sourcing is important, one is when the technology is evolving, more people have to contribute to the development of the technology. Now, you could argue and say, how would you commercialize it then if you open
Correct.
source it?
Correct. Yeah.
The way to commercialize it is to build the necessary enterprise guardrails which come in a controlled way from companies like us. Because if we open sourced it first, we have the expertise and we have the acquaintance of the stack with us. So essentially, open sourcing happens in a very liberated way. And when you bring it to an enterprise landscape, you have to build those guardrails around it so that it has the controls and it has the necessary security, it has the safety and the responsibility imperatives needed for a technology in an enterprise landscape. So we stitch all of those things together and we make money on the services.
In a related context, one AI is co-creating IP and code. And over there, of course, there is this whole open sourcing that is happening. How is Cognizant rethinking, say, ownership, questions of accountability, of ethical authorship when you have client engagements?
It's very clear, irrespective of whether it is human labor or digital labor. If the systems are owned and managed by Cognizant, we have accountability to the outcomes related to it. Most use cases today which are getting generated have human in the loop, and therefore there is accountability
Right.
to the process. And the human in the loop is really the validation process for you to accept that outcome. Equally, but what's also happening is most AI generated output has explainability guardrails. So that if a end user says, wait a minute, how did I get this? How did the machine decide this output? You then go to the explainability section, and in natural language, you will see how the machine decided on the output.
Right. Two final questions. Can you tell me about some more use cases that you see happening in India through agentic AI in the next 2-3 years?
Absolutely. If I take a broad categorization, Anirban, tech for tech is the biggest. We spoke about writing code, software development cycles, agent development cycles. That's the biggest use case. The second, I would believe, is content aggregation. The third, this is probably the single biggest use case I'm seeing, is customer care and employee care. I'll give you an example. We just signed a deal with a large company recently where we took over 500 of the customer care agents, and we are preparing a model of 65% AI agents and 35% human agents as the end state of the customer care for that enterprise. And of course, the 500 people we've taken over, We will redeploy 65% of them because you have AI agents in the mix. And our endeavor is we train them to work alongside AI agents. And therefore, we can actually distribute that capacity to more clients. But, I'll tell you what, the excitement I have is we are lining up in the third week of July to host the largest vibe coding event on the planet.
Right.
We are getting 350,000 of our employees. I'm hoping more than 200,000 log in there. You write code, you don't know how to write code, you're a marketer, you're a journalist, you could just come in and express yourself. In some ways, the vibe coding term is a misnomer because vibe coding might kind of appears like you can't do serious coding on it. I actually have a contrarian view to it. Just because coding is open to everybody and it can be, you could write code even if you're not a coder, doesn't mean coding is not a serious act.
Absolutely.
Coding is a serious profession. So we think with the power of all this AI tooling and the code assist platforms, which we are going to demonstrate, we will make that the only way of writing code in Cognizant. And once we are done with that, subsequently, we're going to create one where we will invite universities and colleges in India to participate in a big vibe coding event, which is beyond the Cognizant ecosystem.
I love how natural language is becoming coding language, and I feel very tempted to try it myself. But I'll end with a question on challenges. And you spoke about regulations and what regulators think when they are thinking AI. But I think there is a gross lack of data laws in India. The other challenge is that we don't have enough compute. So, how can India have an AI revolution that it's planning or that it's envisaging without enough compute on one hand and lack of data rules or data ownership laws on the other?
Anirban, first of all, there are multiple aspects to AI revolution. There is talent and the ability of expressing yourself in a very creative way. That whole piece, India is really top notch. There's no country on the planet which has as much talent and technology as India has. Second, India is also becoming the office of the world. In the next 10 years, India is going to house a lot of operations of enterprises. It's not just technology. A large number of GCCs which are opening up in India are not just related to technology and engineering, but also to ops, because that's where you're going to apply AI. Third, India by itself has population grade data because India is the only country which has a digital stack which is population grade in a very micro way across transactions. So India can actually be, data is the fuel for AI. It kind of feeds the AI in a way that you could create efficient models. Fourth, India is also one of those countries which is known for frugal innovation. I call it reverse innovation. The challenge with AI is how do you make it cost viable? The cost of compute is expensive, the cost of data is expensive, building a model is expensive. How do you make it viable for better consumption? So, with the reverse innovation and the frugal innovation techniques India applies, it can actually flourish. What it does need to solve is the sovereign data imperatives, the requirements of compute, and the lack of compute available locally, and of course, the ability to create governance and regulatory framework. These are the three things India has to work on, but just the number of things it has, these three things will become an enabler and not a constraint because whenever you find the opportunity ahead of you, you're going to break the constraints to get there. And that's what India, I'm quite confident, will do.
On that note, Ravi, thank you so much for joining us on the morning brief. This was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Anirban. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you and your audience.
That's it for today. My biggest takeaway from the conversation is that as the human tongue becomes the language of tech, the answers to the questions it throws up will depend more and more on human judgment. This episode was produced by me and Rajas Naik, sound designed by Amrit Reddy. A new episode of The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Keep listening.